Hello and welcome to the Pilot's Manual, Episode 2, The Drake. The Drake is the heaviest, meanest motherfucker this side of Union, and no frame can hold their ground quite like the Drake. A Titan with assault cannons and artillery, don't get too close, or you're going to figure out why it was waiting so patiently for you to get closer. The Drake is classified as a defender frame, and its licenses focus on creating an area in which its allies can stand and have hard cover, flat damage reduction, and resistances. The Drake doesn't want to move. Its weapons operate solely in the mid-range, which is unfortunate, but once the enemy is in your range, you are going to be causing a few closed casket funerals. So, talking about its core stats and systems, the Drake notably has 3 armor, which is as high as it gets for core stats without the assistances of bonuses and systems. So, even though it only has a fairly average HP of 8, that 8 can be effectively thought of as doubled by the armor up to like 16, even, without any additional points in the hull. It's really difficult to say how much actual HP you get via armor, like the actual HP being how much damage you can effectively take before you actually do get dropped, but estimates would say it's like basically like 0.5. For every 1 HP you have, armor grants you like half an HP. So you get like 2.5 additional HP per HP with 8, so that would be roughly 16 and some change. But on bested days, even more than that. However, when it comes to getting a hit, you're going to be getting hit a lot. You have an evasion of 6 and an E defense of 6, so whether it be hacking or gunning, you will be hit, and you should expect to have to deal with whatever that entails. Additionally, you only come with a speed of 3 and a height of 2, so you stand over most covers, and you don't bring yourself to the front line as easily. So when a sniper pokes its head out, you better be ready to say hello. And finally, you get starting SP of 5, which sits on the lower end, but it's just enough to get you what the LLs from Drake offer. Moving on to its traits, we start with heavy frame, which is frankly fantastic. You cannot be knocked back, pushed, or pulled, or even knocked prone by smaller characters by any means. That means if you approach, despite it being slow, your approach is inevitable. And if the DM wants you to start moving backwards, they are going to need to field frames either of your size or larger. And combine that with the Fomorian frame core bonus from IPSN, that can be quite difficult. There is no easy way to destabilize your positioning with this trait. Blast plating. It's a bit of a more niche talent and trait, It grants you resistance to anything that uses a pattern template. This includes any heat or burn. These templates would deal on hit, which is nice when you're such an easy target, but also nice because you will typically be standing directly next to your allies, so blast templates will be used on you pretty frequently. And the Drake also comes with a few systems that allow their allies to benefit from that talent as well, or from similar effects of that talent. Next, we have slow, which gives you difficulty on all agility checks and saves, which isn't as bad as it sounds on first blush. A lot of agility failed saves usually either knock you back or lay you out prone, or they are mines and use a blast template, which you have resistance to anyways. So, in most cases, failing an agility check or save for the Drake is negligent, doesn't mean anything. Also remember that if you do succeed on an agility check against a mine, it usually does half damage, and that is then resisted for about 1/4 of the damage total, and at that point your armor should just eat it. So if there is a mine that deals 8, your blast plating reduces it to 4, you succeed on a save that reduces it to 2, you have 3 armor, no damage. It's that simple, it's that nice, right? So if anything, slow doesn't really do anything to slow you down. And finally we have Guardian. Allies may use you as hardcover, so allies essentially can stand adjacent to you and gain all the same benefits they would gain as if they were standing next to a piece of terrain which is equivalent to the size of your character. And honestly, you might as well be a Tisa terrain. So if we'll move this picture for us, I'll show you a bit of an example here. So this kobold is standing behind the Drake, right? And we have a Rainmaker here that would want to target the kobold, and we have a Sniper here that would want to target the kobold. Both of them would have double difficulty on either attack they make, and additionally, if the Sniper wanted to use dead metal rounds, which turns its gun into a line 20, It would also hit the Drake, but it would deal half damage, about 5 armor piercing, rather than its usual 10 armor piercing at tier 1. Though the Kobold might still get hit. But it's always nice to give as much cover and inaccuracy to long-range artillerists like this as you can manage. As we get into the licenses, we'll bring us over to our little example, our build example zone. Since the Drake's passives are so passive, there's no real active parts of its traits. Examples for it are as simple as just showing you the Drake standing still and then explaining for you what's actually happening. It's very fun. How much you don't do. Oh, right. Before we end out on talking about the traits and getting into the licenses, we need to talk about its mounts and core power. The Drake sports a lovely 2 main mounts and a heavy mount, which is actually still not enough to support the 3 weapons the Drake receives with its license levels, which we'll get to. It's almost good it doesn't, for one example, but we'll talk about it. And the Drake's core power is the Fortress Protocol. This core is a protocol, if the name didn't give it away, and when you activate it, your mech throws down stabilizers that turn it into an actual piece of terrain. This unfolds 2 pieces of hardcover from your frame drawn in any direction. These pieces are 1 high and 2 long. So what that looks like, I activate my protocol, I get immobilized by this effect, and I need to draw out 2 pieces of terrain. Probably draw something like, okay, they're like what, 2 long, 1 high, okay. Then I'll be like, I want 1 here, I want 1 here. And these are hardcover, essentially. You could also do a configuration where you got 1 on either side. It doesn't really matter, they just need to be attached to you, like so. But yeah, you essentially just throw up some barriers for your allies to use. And that's hardcover. And speaking of hardcover, you, while immobilized this way, benefit from hardcover regardless of where you are or where the attack is coming from, and you are granted immunity to all involuntary movement. You can't be pushed, you can't be pulled, you can't be dragged, or you cannot be knocked back or knocked prone. None of it. And when you brace, which usually leaves you with only 1 action afterwards, you in fact have a full action. Since you're already immobilized, not having your movement doesn't mean anything. So basically, if you have a reaction, you're getting hit, just fucking brace. Who cares? Characters, allied or enemy, using your deployable hardcover gain immunity to involuntary movement as well, and have resistance to damage inflicted to them by pattern weapons, like you do with blast plating. So essentially, line, cone, blast, burst, and yeah, I think that's about it. Line, cone, blast, burst, any of those, resistance to them, just like you. This can last until the end of the scene or until it's deactivated as a protocol. This protocol is incredibly niche, I'll say, and in its use cases, even in its use cases, it might not be the best choice always. Essentially, using this, its most justifiable situation in which to use this is in a holdout almost always. In a situation in which the enemy is coming to you and you don't need to worry about moving ever. It can also be map dependent because sometimes you really want to find a good spot to do that rather than just doing it in the holdout zone. There's a lot of nuance to it that makes it difficult to make optimal, but that doesn't make it bad. It has a very specific use. And in a game like Lancer, in which core powers can be limited sometimes, if you're in a situation in which there are 4 of you and one of you is a Drake, and there's only 2 core powers that could be distributed amongst the 4 of you, you as a Drake can be pretty confident that if you're going into a situation in which you know your core power is going to be useful, it's inarguable. But if it's not, then you don't need to worry about taking it, you know? Some characters can feel really reliant on using their core power to get things done. It's nice to have one that you can always keep in your back pocket, essentially. So, alright, moving on to its license now. Starting at license level 1, we get a unique weapon and an even more unique system in the form of the Assault Cannon and the Argonaut Shield. Starting off with the Assault Cannon, we see both our first instance of Overkill, Heat Self, and of multiple weapon profiles. This weapon both has the weapon profile of Unspun and Spun Up. While this weapon is unspun, you can spin it up as a quick action and become slowed until you unspin it as a protocol. The unspun weapon deals 1d6 plus 2 kinetic, and the spun version gains the reliable 3 tag. Overkill on a weapon means that whenever you roll a 1 for damage, you automatically take 1 heat and re-roll the damage, until you roll something other than a 1. This essentially raises the minimum damage of this weapon from a 3 to a 4. So, your minimum damage can never be 1. And that's pretty nice for some weapons. It can lead to some good math, but yeah. But nothing. No, it's good. There's nothing to say about Overkill. Oh, but heat. The Drake starts with a pretty above average heat cap for an IPSN mech, especially with a heat cap of, I do believe, 6. And that's quite nice. You know, or it might be 5. Either or. Drake has a bit of a heat cap to work with, but Overkill and heat on the weapon for these Drake license kind of like introduce a secret reload mechanic where occasionally when you fire your assault cannons enough, you have to take a full action to stabilize and clear your heat, right? So it's something worth keeping in mind that this weapon is something that you need to stabilize with and have off turns with, much like you would if you were firing a loading weapon. It just comes later. It comes after with a bit more risk, even. And yeah, it has Heat Self, which means you take X amount of heat as detailed in the Heat Self tag when you fire this weapon. With a range of 8, this weapon sits firmly in the mid-range of weaponry with decent, consistent damage at the cost of requiring you to pay attention to your heat intake. As I said before, the weapon profile swapping ability grants it a flexibility not seen in many weapons. Since its minimum damage in both profiles is larger than the reliable you receive, I like to think of the spin-up mode as a way of dealing with invisible and evasive characters like Hornets or Scouts. Though its range is often a problem for it, I think it most excels at dealing with invisible melee characters who are already on the approach. In particular, I like to think the Drake excels at dealing with assassins who are unable to do anything other than resist damage from the Drake. Since none of their knockdown or proning tricks actually work on the Drake, and because it has flat damage reduction as well. Basically, fuck you assassins, eat Leviathan Cannon. It's also fun that you can dual wield these and barrage them for maximum heat, you know. Since it's a cannon, it also benefits from Siege Specialist, but I find that Siege Specialist doesn't really work with Drake. Siege Specialist helps you destroy terrain and otherwise move enemies out of position, and the Drake's not going to be on the front line, so you're actually the one who is being sieged rather than you sieging, so it doesn't usually actually do much for you, unfortunately. But yeah, speaking of being sieged, let's check out the Argonaut Shield. At a modest price of 2 SP, you can, as a quick action, defend an ally and grant them resistance to all damage. You take the difference, so if a target would take 4 kinetic damage, it is then reduced to 2 by Argonaut Shield, and you take 2 damage as well as your target. This effect is maintained as long as your target remains adjacent to you. The system doesn't directly state you can't do this to multiple characters at the same time, but from the end text wording and other discussions I've had, it feels as though it's intentional that the system affects only one character at a time. A discussion to have with your DM because it's very unclear, but that is what it feels like. This is an excellent support tool, especially if you're dealing with pattern damage. You would take half damage, the half damage they receive, and then half it again, essentially never dealing damage to you because of all your armor. I mean, you would probably take the attack twice, but regardless, again, resistance, armor, it's great. However, it is difficult to maintain this unless your ally has plans on staying still, which oftentimes they don't. So I tend to think that it's best used on a character who's already gone, so you can protect them for as long as possible, or on a character you know will be adjacent to you for the entirety of their turn or longer, like on an artillerist, like on a Death's Head who's spamming crack shot, and you want to protect them from getting punished for not taking a lot of movement. However, this also can be mitigated with House Guard 1 from the KTB expansion, because then your ally has to only remain within range 2 of you to be considered adjacent. This little extra reach can be all the difference on a slow frame like Drake. And even on like quicker frames who need to reach out a bit further than just adjacency to the Drake. And there are ways to make this even easier on your allies and make being adjacent to you even easier, you know? And we'll get into those. Another weakness this tool suffers from is shredded. Since you cannot benefit from resistances while shredded, your target would take the full damage, and you would still take your half despite the fact your Argonaut shield isn't doing anything to help them. This system actually features better on certain frontline striker builds like Orcus, who are playing defense, who want to reduce all damage to their adjacent frontline allies, as well as White Witch builds. White Witch fucking does work with an Argonaut shield. It makes Drake look silly, because White Witch is 1, super fast. 2, does a lot more than just defend adjacent allies with its Argonaut shield sometimes. And 3, I don't even have a third point. It just works so much better on White Witch than it does on Drake sometimes. And we'll get to White Witch in SSC. White Witch being a frame that came with the KTB expansion. Moving on to the second license level, of course, we get the Drake frame and both the concussion missiles and the Aegis shield generator. Let's get the concussion missiles out of the way. This thing kind of sucks dog water. Firstly, low damage, especially for a main at 1d3, but doesn't have any effect that actually makes that worth anything. Like, on hit, force a save, on failure, impaired. There are a million ways to impair a target that don't require a save, and Knockback 2 is nice, but it has a range of 5. Like, that's worse than the assault cannons. So as far as I understand what its place is supposed to be in a Drake build is you are sitting behind cover with some melee strikers, and you can barrage to hit them with the concussion missiles first and maybe impair them, which might be nice. And then you hit them with the assault cannons in a full barrage, and that's like 1d6 plus 1d3 plus the additional bonus for assault cannons. And that's like, for like at maximum putting a character at range 7 at you, like, eh. But you want to know what does what I just described better? Take 2 assault cannons, barrage with both of them, use walking armory, and give one of them some knockback. You don't sacrifice the damage, you don't have to worry about forcing a save that's gonna fail for a mediocre impair, and you deal 2d6 plus 4 damage. I mean, the only reason you'd use concussion missiles is if you're worried about heat. But if you're playing the Drake properly, you're already conscientious of heat buildup. Like, this weapon feels like it wants to be an auxiliary, and that would make it way more justified. I mean, to be able to spam the impair check and deal moderate damage, which is also actually pushing back enemies who are assaulting in the front line. It's... Even then, it would still be kind of bad, but an auxiliary would be a lot more justifiable, because as it is now, it's a waste of amount. It's absolutely a waste of amount. I tried so hard to put concussion missile in the build, and because it's a launcher, it benefits from Stormbringer, and honestly, fuck that. Like, I don't know, if the fail on save effect was better, if it was just on a better mount type, if it was just a little bit better in the damage department, like literally any of these things. The knockback doesn't justify enough to take it, because there are just other ways of getting knockback, and honestly more damaging ways of getting knockback if you're taking walking armory, which is one of the things I recommend. God, what else is there to say about concussion missiles? Mangled, send this one to the fucking Shadow Realm. Moving on. Aegis Shield Generators is a deployable system at a price of 2 SP. Deployables are systems that create other objects that can be interacted with in unique ways and typically have their own resources and HP. By default, I believe it's like 5 HP, 10 evasion, 8 defense, something like that. This system is limited to 1 to start out with and can use that limited charge to be deployed onto an adjacent free space as a quick action. After which, it disperses a size 1 shield, or burst 1 shield. Characters partially or fully within the shield can benefit from its supportive effects. It has 3 charges, each represented by a d6. Whenever an ally takes damage while within its effects, you may, as a reaction, reduce the charge of the generator by 1 and roll that d6. You reduce the damage taken by that mech by that d6. This happens as a reaction to that damage, so applies before resistances and armor, meaning you can potentially reduce the damage to nearly nothing or below the actual armor of the character. Since this doesn't specify allied characters, you can actually also do this to yourself, which is very valuable, not just for allies, but for yourself, especially since you won't be moving. Being able to stand within this is really, really nice. Once you've expended all 3 charges of the generator, it loses power and is destroyed. I don't have any complaints about this system beyond its extremely low limited score. You can at most with maximum engineering field about 4 of these. Since the Drake has a higher repair cap, it can spot the repairs to remake these as needed, but still nice to try and save those for stress and structure, though I suppose this investment prevents at least one of those from happening. Another downside of it is that you can't actually undeploy it once it's out, since it's limited, nor can you move it once it's down. So you need to be extra careful with your placement to ensure allies and yourself can maximize its utility. Obviously this, like every system the Drake has, is best in a situation where you and your allies are entrenched and don't plan on moving. It's nice that you don't need to be fully within that shield burst, because otherwise there are a lot of allies who would, if they had to stand fully within it, a lot of allies could never really benefit from it. So yeah, moving on to License Level 3. This one has the big daddy of assault cannons and our first super heavy of the series. Also, like a literal pocket trench you just throw out there. So let's actually do this a bit out of order and talk about the portable bunker first. Then we can get to the Leviathan heavy assault cannon. The portable bunker is similar to the Aegis shield generator, being a limited 1 deployable that is dropped in an adjacent space as a free action. The difference? It's size 4. The bunker doesn't actually have any height, so it isn't considered height 4, but it is instead described as covering a 4x4 area, so essentially size 4. This deployable is unique because it has an HP of fucking 40 and provides hard cover to any allies, at least with any allies within it, without actually needing to be adjacent to anything other than this portable bunker. And you can pass through it without any difficulty. It's essentially just a unique area you can slap down that provides an area protection for all allies. Additionally, allies within the area receive resistances to pattern types, similar to blast plating. I've been using the wording allies a lot, but I do want to actually be clear that it's all characters, meaning you benefit from it, and if you have poor placement, the enemies can benefit from it as well. The one limitation is that the cover only applies if the attack originates from outside of the zone. So if a berserker runs up there with a trench shovel and rolls up into your little buddy zone, apologies, sir. And since it's limited 1, you also have to be very careful with its placement, because it's also it feels pricier, even though it's the same amount of charges as the Aegis generator. It just feels more important since it's so big. The resistance to patterns is going to feel really nice when the bombard tries to hit your entire team, because you're all clumped together, because despite being size 4, you are going to be like right next to each other if you're all in there, and it's really good for holdout style missions. This deployable is basically the Drake in a deployable. It essentially has a lot of health, hard cover for allies, and it never fucking moves. So like that's it. That's the Drake. Now let's get to the showstopper. Leviathan heavy assault cannon. This super heavy weapon boasts both a skirmishing fire mode and a full super heavy barrage mode, using a similar weapon profile swapping system to its little sister, the assault cannon. You may, while this weapon is unspun, fire it as a quick action as a part of a skirmish and deal 1d6 damage within range 8. This deals less damage than the unspun assault cannon, but also doesn't have any heat costs associated with firing it. However, once spun up as a quick action, you become slowed, same as with the assault cannon. You can only fire it as a barrage, like any other super heavy, and it has a 2 heat cost, but also deals 5 reliable. But even more importantly, fuck reliable, fuck a heat cost. 4d6 plus 4 kinetic damage, for a maximum of 28 damage, a minimum of 8 damage, and an average of 18 damage. Even its minimum damage puts most NPCs on death's door. This firing mode can be ended as a protocol like the assault cannon. This gun, as a super heavy, takes up 2 of your mounts at a time, and it can't benefit from a lot of talents or systems, but ultimately its damage is supposed to speak for itself, and often it does when it hits. There are ways of increasing its likelihood, but it definitely requires more dedication than your average weapon type. So the Leviathan is...
Exactly.
Let's do this, gamers.
If you don't kill him,
I'm so fucking excited.
Hell yeah.
I'm so fucking excited.
That's funny,
I'm
that's
so fucking excited.
That's twice their HP. What does it look like when you kill the Patriarch?
Say hi to Mary.
Please, just give me a moment. He runs up. I hold the Leviathan assault cannon out, and I'm like, dodge this, and I'm like, his body hits the ground.
fun. Super heavies in general are fun, and frames that can effectively field them are typically considered very strong damage dealers, because of that insane potential they get when it's invested in. Other weapons bring you more utility, consistency, but nothing quite makes you feel like a fucking god when firing a super heavy and turning a boss into a memory. This weapon, with high reliable, also makes it good against invisible or high evasion characters like the assault cannons, though the threat of hitting with it is a lot more frightening. Committing your full action to firing this weapon should usually be done if you only plan on firing off of this weapon from then on, since you won't have the additional action to actually place down your utilities anymore. The ability to skirmish with this weapon is actually less good than it first appears. It slows down the roll of this weapon. But a lot of builds who are centering around the Leviathan will definitely spend the overcharge to just spin it up before barraging in the first place. Because once it's spun up, nothing's on spinning it unless for some reason you as a Drake really need to schmoove. Which isn't going to come often. But I mean, that also just comes with good positioning. Since spinning it up isn't a protocol, that is really nice, so you can position yourself before you slow yourself, and then you don't even have to worry about it anymore. So with all the licenses out of the way, let's get into the theory crafting. I will say, I don't usually play defenders, and they tend to be a bit weak in Lancer, as my opinion is, but I think these 3 builds should give you an idea for what a Drake is capable of. I actually played one of these builds for a Shattered Stories recording down by the valley to make sure I was on the right track, and even in a holdout I was running into some issues with the Drake getting hit, with the Drake's kit, you know, like with the Drake getting hit, with the Drake's kit, with we'll get into those.
Could you all come at me a bit faster, please?
But they're getting closer.
Alright.
Thank God. Please. For fuck's sakes.
Be nice.
I'm a medium range blow bitches up kind of mech.
Yeah, off the cliff.
Aw, man, no, that's just a little too far. God damn it. Fucking move these goddamn bastards within range 8 of me.
Next to me, correct, you're attacking here. Okay.
Wait! That's 8 spaces away from me!
Ah!
You silly bastard!
Yes!
I'm gonna kill you fucking now! Nothing. You're smaller than me, fucker. You're tiny. You're worthless to me.
Small.
I spit on you like a freaking bug.
Sensors 10, systems +1. I'm actually just gonna invade you.
Huh?
Oh yeah, forgot about this guy.
Range on this 8.
Yeah, now you're about to know how I feel. Yeah, you can't reach me, can you?
No, I can. It's blast 1. It's
Oh.
gonna shoot.
For the 3 builds you see tonight, I used Leader, Bonded, Walking Armory, Nuke Cav, Tactician, Pancrati, and House Guard. Additionally, I'll be featuring the core bonuses of slowed plating, auto stab, and the IPSN Fomorian frame. Now with that out of the way, let's begin. Let's get a proper look at these. Let's start with our basic bitch Drake. Our basic bitch Drake, Bullet Delivery, is being piloted by a lovely, lovely lady named John Doe, and this is about everything that would make a pretty solid all-arounder Drake, as far as I can make it. We are fielding an assault cannon, we're fielding a Leviathan heavy assault cannon, and we have Aegis, for portable bunker, Argonaut shield, personalizations, right? We have all the good stuff. And we also took sloped plating for an additional armor, putting us up to 4 armor. 3 hull, 2 engineering to give us both a little more heat to work with and a little more HP to work with in both directions. Having at least minimum of 2 engineering gives you an additional limited system that you can work with. That's why I have 2 of these. And also personalizations, just for that another little boost in HP. For talents, I took Leader, with Leader 3, Bonded 2, and Walking Armory 1. So, how does this look? Let's say me and this Gorgon are bonded. A bonded character is a character that you pick, or another pilot, right, to be your bond mate. And any mix, skill checks, or saves either character makes, which is either of us, while adjacent, have an accuracy, right? And also the intercede reaction. When you are adjacent to your bond mate, pilot, or mech, and they take damage from a source within your line of sight, you may take the damage instead. So this is leaning into like the Argonaut shield use, as you'll see. Armament, Walking Armory. I can, whenever I fire a main ranged weapon, which includes my assault cannon, I can reduce the limited score of this by 1 and give it knockback 1 and deal explosive damage, or I can deal energy damage and choose an adjacent target and deal 1 AP energy damage, or I can give it arcing and deal kinetic damage. I'm usually going to be using Thumper to push back enemies. And Leader is fun. As a free action on your turn, you can basically use Inspiration dice. So at tier 1, you give them a d6 as a free action, and you give them an order, and they gain an accuracy on any action that directly falls from that order. So basically, the first time they perform an action listed within your little thing, they may spend that leadership die. Issue Command is a reaction. At the start of another player's turn, you can give them that, and at Inspiring Presence, at tier 3, they can use leadership die to increase the damage of their attack or to reduce damage they take, which is very important for the kind of build that we want this Bullet Delivery to handle. So let's say, start a turn. I move up here. This is my bond mate. Quick action, I Argonaut shield them, so now they're defended, right? So me and this guy right here are connected. We are one. I'm bonded, I'm Argonaut shielding, and now I'm going to take a bit of a scrap with this dude, and I'm going to fire off my assault cannon at him. And I'm gonna... well, I take 1 hit immediately, but I do miss. If I had hit, I was going to spend my Walking Armory, and I was going to use Thumper, and I would have knocked him back 1. So, like, just knocked him back 1 space. Give the Blackbeard some breathing room. Not that he really needs it, but that's something you can do. Lay down some extra damage. Because he's within my range, and they are not. They look so close to me, don't they? But they are not within my range. Not at all. Not even close. And then let's say the Rainmaker activates. And the Rainmaker is like, okay, I'm gonna missile pods, you motherfuckers. And I'm going to attack you, and you. Right. Argonaut Shield is active on the Gorgon, so they would take resistance, take half damage. So it would look like... Oh, right. I misplayed this turn a little bit. I would free action probably give the Berserker a leadership die on my turn. Then this guy's turn would start and then missile pods. Am I targeting my friend now? So, no accuracies, no inaccuracies. That misses me. It's reliable to reduced by armor. Slicer gets hit, which is our Gorgon over here. Reduce that damage to 2 because of Argonaut shield. Then I take another 2, which is reduced by my armor. And the Gorgon has, I do believe, no armor, but it just takes 2 HP. Right? Just 2 explosive damage. And knockback 1. Like such. I don't get knocked back because I'm bigger than this stupid motherfucker. And this guy gets knocked back 1. And then he consumes a d6, and his leadership die the d6, so he doesn't take this damage. He has 1 armor, so he needs to roll at least like a 5 or a 4. Well, that's embarrassing. He rolls a 4. That reduces the damage completely. No damage, only 2 damage. And that's just with a little bit of setup, like not even like crazy setup. My let's say my berserker over here, my Blackbeard, starts their turn. And then I, as a reaction, give them another leadership die. They start going crazy, they start going off, they start going hard. Dead Berserker at the end of all that. Right? He kills this guy, let's say. That guy's dead, let's pretend. And he's just all the way over here now trying to get in, go hard. That's Blackbeard doing Blackbeard things. I can, on my turn, still have my Argonaut shield active. I can just do this little movement right here, and I'm giving my guy behind me a bit of hard cover, and I'm going to throw down my Aegis shield generator as a quick action. I'm still just chilling, still just doing work for my ally, and now this Rainmaker's in my line of sight. I'm gonna overcharge actually, and I am going to spin up my assault cannon, and now I'm going to take a shot at it. And that's a miss, but 3 reliable, right? And I take another heat, so I'm at like 2 out of 7 heat now. Well, 3 because I overcharged, right? So this is kind of how you want to play a defender. Is you're chilling in the back. You don't care. You're chilling, right? Maybe this file activates. Maybe they shoot you with something. Files don't do any damage. It don't matter, but regardless, you are sitting back here. You are big chilling. This is the standard Drake. You want to sit at the mid range behind your melee guy over here, and you want a big chill. And the burst for this thing would look like this. So if either of these two were to take damage, I could reduce the charges of this thing by 1 and reduce it by a whole d6. Similar to how the leadership die work. I mean, like, as a free action, I could give that Blackbeard, like, I mean, as a free action, I could give this Gorgon a die over here. It'd be like, hey, don't die. Blackbeard already has a die over here that they could use, right? So that's kind of what a pretty basic, play it safe, play it chill Drake build looks like. Let's get a little goofy. I want to talk about this build right here. What if you fucking hate defending? What if you fucking hate defending? Right? This one puts some points into agility just to be a little bit faster. Points in engineering, some hull. Okay. What's going on, you might be wondering. So, I didn't take any Drake systems for this. All I took was Drake weapons. A Type 1 flight system, a Type 3 projected shield, personalizations, and a CPJ, a custom paint job. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, at the start of my turn, let's say I start my turn right over here. Right, we'll move you back. Move you back even a little bit. I start my turn right here. So this is Rocket's Red Glare. And how Rocket's Red Glare works is at the start of my turn, I'm going to protocol activate Type 1 projected shield, and I'm going to make it so that this Berserker has +2 difficulty on trying to make attacks against me, right? And I'm going to take 1 heat for my treble. Not 11 heat, just 1. Then, I'm going to activate my talents. Pancrati's back, everybody. So, we know how Vidi works. Free action, I move up to twice my speed, ignoring terrain penalties, and you must move in a straight line. Da 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 da, right? Boom, right here. My friend over here is slowed. And I'm gonna say, I still have my standard movement. I'm gonna start flying now, and I'm gonna move 4 up into the sky. This Rainmaker could try and make a basic attack, well, could try and like Overwatch me, because technically all weapons have 1 threat. But like also, I'm a big beefy bitch. I got 3 armor, who cares? I fly up into the sky, using 3 movement because of my type 1 flight system. I can just fly for any of my movement. I'm gonna move 3 to 4 up into the sky, and I'm gonna target this poor bastard right here. And I haven't taken any actions yet, other than a protocol. So, here's what happens now. Overcharge. Quick action, spin up mode, Leviathan Heavy Assault, Super Heavy Cannon. Okay, you following me still? Let's talk about Tactician. Once per round, gain +1 accuracy on any melee attacks if at least one ally character is engaged with your target. Fuck that. Let's talk about Solar Backdrop. Once per round, gain +1 accuracy on any range attacks you make while at a higher elevation than your target. I'm currently flying in the air. My Rainmaker target here is lower than me on the ground. I'm up at elevation number 3. That's +1 accuracy, baby. This is the only time you'll ever see Tactician get used on this channel, hopefully. And Vinny gives me an accuracy, Solar Backdrop gives me an accuracy, and if I were able to, or if I had more heat built up, I would get new cap benefits, which the first attack you make while in the danger zone deals +2 heat on hit, and Fusion Hemorrhage, which is the first attack you make on your turn, first range melee attack you make on your turn while in the danger zone, which is above or at your heat cap, which is above half of your heat cap. Just at half of your heat cap or above half of your heat cap is the danger zone. Deals a bonus 1d6 energy damage. So this could potentially deal like 5d6 damage basically. And that's what this build is. So let's deal 19 fucking damage to this dude. Take 2 more heat, which would put me into the danger zone actually. And then on my next turn, like 19 damage, that's a dead Rainmaker. That Rainmaker is no longer alive. So let's say a turn passes, this file is like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And everything rolls around, gets back to me at some point. This Berserker's not dead somehow. Engaged with an ally, so that's 1 accuracy from that. Oh, also at the end of my turn, I forgot to mention this about Type 1's flight system. I'm size 2. At the end of my turn, if I maintain my flight, I gain heat that is my size +1. So that gives me another 3 heat, which is 5, 6, 7. Yeah, that just puts me at my heat cap. Right? I haven't exploded yet. This is what it's all about, baby. And if I want to, I can full action on my turn to stabilize, and then maybe quick action skirmish with this guy over here. But like, you know, this is kind of the silliness that you can get into with Leviathan Heavy Assault Cannon and some aggressive talent choices. Is this the best Drake build? No. But you will see a Drake build a lot like this sometimes. You'll see a lot of builds like this if you rock around the one-shot circuits. People love some silly-ass fucking Leviathan Heavy Assault Cannon builds. And I will say, probably one of the funnier frames. I don't think I'd ever play this frame. I'd probably wait till LL6 to play this frame actually, and take Sherman 2, which allows you to, with redundant systems upgrade, stabilize as a quick action, which would probably make this build even more viable. Give you a few extra system points to actually maybe drop down an Aegis shield, and also give you probably New Cav 3 and Pinkrati 3. Not that you need Pinkrati 3. Probably want more, something closer to like, oh, what am I thinking? Ace. Just to be fucking funny. Just take Ace, you know? So let's talk about Big Bitch. Oh, I apologize. I forgot about something about Rocket's Red Glare. That weapon should have had 3 accuracy. because of the core bonus I took on them. I took auto-stabilizing hard points. Auto-stabilizing hard points means that choose one weapon mount, weapons attached to this mount gain +1 accuracy, and I had chosen my super heavy mount, which means that that super heavy Leviathan heavy assault cannon gets 1 accuracy from Tactician for being above them, and then a 3rd accuracy from Vidi, Pancrati 1, and then comboed with Pancrati 2. Big Bitch follows a similar logic to the Drake of I want to be friends, but is like, okay, how can I maximize adjacency? By being bigger. So we take the IPSN Fomorian frame, which moves my mech size up by 1 increment. So I go from being size 2 to being size 3. I also take House Guard from KTB. House Guard changes it so that adjacency is when I am within range 2. This is for the effects of talents, traits, systems, weapons, anything that requires adjacency to my mech that's not within those, that is within those categories. And then Greater Guardian, which if I didn't already have the Guardian trait, which I do, I would get it. And then now additionally, I grant soft cover to all adjacent allies from all directions, which is within range 2. So this Blackbeard right here, he's adjacent to me right now, and he has soft cover. This guy over here has soft cover, yet if he's not standing behind me, he's also considered adjacent to me. This is really nice if paired with Bonded, which we aren't for this. We're actually expanding our portfolio and getting just Leader 2. You could swap Leader 2 out for Bonded 2 if you really wanted to. But similar idea, except now you can't reduce the damage. So a turn on this guy would look a bit similar to this guy right here, but I would probably say fuck it and drop down a portable bunker, which actually technically has a bigger range now because adjacency to me is considered so large. Maybe throw it down there, maybe, yeah, like that, right? And then take some movement. Oh, no, not you. Like such. Or maybe not. See, this is the one issue with being a little bit bigger, is that it's actually quite difficult to get around. So just like that. That should be perfectly fine. No, I don't think there is a way for me to get there. That's fine. I don't need to be in there. I could step forward like this, right? Quick action, drop a portable bunker. Quick action. Just maybe throw down my Argonaut shield on this person. Maybe throw down my Argonaut shield on this person. Hell, I could have thrown Argonaut shield down on the Blackbeard from back here, right? And that still would have worked. But now he has hard cover from like this Rainmaker, right? So I'm gonna give the Argonaut shield to my Gorgon like I did before. And then this Rainmaker is gonna activate like it did before, and it's going to say, okay, you, move this out of the way, you. And hard cover on our Blackbeard, soft cover on Slicer, and just normal against me. Argonaut shield on Slicer over there. So it hits Phoenix for 4 damage, reduced by 1 by its armor. Reliable 2 on Slicer. It's any damage, so that gets split in half to 1. And then they take 1, I take nothing. And then 4 on me, which is reduced. I don't think it's reduced at all, but 3 armor, so just 1 damage. So over the course of all that, like 2 damage was dealt. Maybe 3 total damage was dealt. No, it was 2 damage was dealt total on 2 hits. And the knockback would proc and push our dear friend, the Blackbeard, back a bit, but you know, nothing that we can't handle. And let's say the turns roll around back to me, and maybe I could drop this shield Aegis generator on my turn for more, like, nothing's moving me. I can just leave my Blackbeard to do the moving. He can get up here all he wants, you know, eventually over to here or whatever, and then like I could maybe step in here, like I could just like get here, the Blackbeard's all the way over there, and like I'm in range. Being size 3 also means that technically your weapons get a bit of a range boost because you have a bit more space to draw your tokens out from. Like, Range 8 looks a bit different on a size 3 than it does on a size 2. So, if we're both drawing from one corner of our frames, this is size 8 for me, and size 8 for them is like a little bit longer, right? Just a little bit. But yeah, Big Bitch is my favorite. Big Bitch is also what I played for Shattered Stories because I think Big Bitch is funny. It also similarly, you know, does a lot of Drake things that you want to be doing. It's just a unique core bonus attached to it. Also, I'd be throwing out my leadership die. And, you know, so let's talk about the expanded portfolio. So eventually you are going to shoot someone, and maybe you're not shooting them with, you know, your Leviathan cannon. You're not really focusing on that. Maybe you'll spin it up as a quick action, and then you'll skirmish with your assault cannon. Because, you know, you don't really need to hit with your Leviathan assault cannon, but you want to be able to threaten it. You're slowed now. You don't really need to be moving anywhere. You're in a good position to just go hard, right? So, just fucking shoot the Efficient Rainmaker with my little assault cannon. Okay, on hit, I'm gonna activate my Walking Armory. Sabat. Not that, you know, it doesn't need to be AP. Let's just say, like, I don't know, Jaeger. I expend two charges. I knock this guy back 2. Pushes them, like, right here. And then they need to make a save or be knocked prone. You see how that's better than concussion missiles? It uses a limited charge, sure, but I can have it on any main weapon. And additionally, fuck you, prone's better than impaired. So, on a failure, be right here. That gives accuracy to all my allies who try to make an attack on it until it stands back up, right? That's pretty good. This Berserker could try and swing at me, but like, no, leave me alone. You're nothing to me. I'm so big. Big Bitch is like entering the danger zone. I don't know. On my next action, I'm not doing much. I'm just chilling. I'm still adjacent to my Gorgon from getting getting a hit. Fucking full action, do that. Maybe, I don't know, overcharge and skirmish again. Maybe throw down another deployable. You know, like, this gives you a lot more. Like, that's what's nice about the Drake. It's relaxing. You really can just stand there and have a good time and not worry about anything. You know, like, everybody else out there is freaking out and having a fucking time. You're chill. You're in your zone, focused, measured, hydrated, and all that. You can take your time. You're not in any rush. If the enemy's on the other side of the map, let them come. Unless the objective's on the other side of the map, then you're like, let me die. And that's getting ourselves into some of the concluding thoughts about Drake. God, is this mech so frustrating sometimes. It's fun to be big and slow and just wait and try and measure yourself by patience and your ability to take your time, because you're not going fucking anywhere. Unlike strikers who want to kill you in one turn only, or else they will literally just explode. Let's say the fight was all the way up here. That is, like, even with a move boost, I'm not even within range of these two backliners yet. And I moved and I boosted. And let's say I had one of my guns wound up. I can't boost on that turn. I have to unwind it first, and that puts me down in action that I spent winding it. Right? Like, it can be quite frustrating. And unfortunately, there's just not a lot of sit reps that ask you to sit still. Most sit reps require a lot of movement and repositioning. And a lot of what the Drake has allows it to just sit still and not have to worry about repositioning, but when the objective's demanding it of you, and all of the allies you're supposed to be defending are going there, but you can't keep up, you are unable to do your job effectively, you know? And that's what like a build like Rocket's Red Glare is meant to kind of like work around, is using a bunch of weird niche talents and GMS systems to turn the Drake from a really slow, out-of-the-way guy to somebody who can jump in and then just slap you over the head with a Leviathan Super Heavy. Like, there's potential for that in the Drake, but that's not really what you're supposed to be doing, you know? Rocket's Red Glare is not what a Drake should be doing. It's funny, and it'd be fun to do, but, like, you are not the most effective character on the field. You are, if anything, it's just deeply suboptimal, except for the fact that occasionally you just completely obliterate someone. And I guess that's just the Drake in general, just deeply suboptimal until they turn someone into dust, right? Hardcover's really good, providing it this much is really nice. The Aegis, the Argonaut Shield, and the Aegis Shield Generator are fantastic systems. I just find that they get used better on literally anyone else, and it sucks a little bit that that's how it is. But like, I would never say not to play the Drake. The Drake is humongously tanky. Like, you feel that 3 armor if it's not being dealt with, and it's great. You feel like a fucking god. But you will run into frustrations. And just to speak on Portable Bunker, it's like fine. It's like fine, just niche, I feel. It's the exact same problem the Drake has, where... And the Aegis Shield Generator. The thing with the Aegis Shield Generator, though, is that you'll probably get at least a few charges off before you might have to move away. But, like, the Portable Bunker, like, once you're out of it, like, are you ever going to get back into that? Like, I don't know. And in terms of damage-reducing talents or traits, Blast Plating's probably one of the lesser ones. Because, like, resistance to damage, burn, and heat from blast, burst, line, and cone attacks makes a lot of sense considering how close you'll be to allies all the time, but it doesn't give that to your allies, it just gives it to you. I mean, there are ways to give it to your allies, Portable Bunker, your core power, but like, there's something to say about, hey, I'm expecting to get hit by bombardments, stand next to me, so you have hard cover from those bombardments, but also so that if you do take damage, you take full damage, but I'm fine, you know? You wanna know what's a better way of avoiding getting caught up in a bombardment? Just stand far enough away that it can't get both of you. And if it decides to target the Drake, then it'd be doing less damage, so it's probably gonna target somebody else, but in that case, it's still not dealing a bunch of damage, you're not clumped up, you know? That's what the Drake encourages. It encourages a lot of clumping up. A lot of defenders do. And there are just plenty of enemies who are happy to punish you for clumping up. Yeah, that's about all I have to say about the Drake. I don't want to put like a score to it, but like, Blackbeard, in my opinion, is probably like in the top 10 frames, not even because of its traits, just because of everything else in its license levels. Drake is like mid-pack. Very, very mid of the pack. It's like the most mid it can get. In terms of its contemporaries and IPSN license, it's probably on the like lower end, genuinely. And that's unfortunately, because it's got a wicked cool design. Like, fucking love this frame's look. It's awesome. But ultimately, never be afraid to play the Drake still. It's still a lot of fun. I recommend it. I played it. It was a lot of fun. So, if you have any questions, please come down to the comment section and ask me questions so I can give you specific answers so we can learn. If there's anything I got wrong, feel free to point it out. The Drake is not my favorite choice. And I learned to love it, certainly, but it takes a little work. So, thank you for coming out with me today, the Pilot's Manual. And I'd like to remind all of you that I have a Patreon. And speaking of Patreon, let's talk about our patrons. I have some names to read off, don't I? I'd like to issue a thank you to That Cabbage, Vendetta, Alex Meekley, and yeah, those are my 3 patrons to name off for today. Thank you again for all coming out. Yeah, and have a good night.